Welcome. This is Jean Eaton of Information Managers, your host of Practice Management Nuggets Webinars for your healthcare practice. This week, my guest is Heather Scott, a board director with Kids4 Cameras. Kids4 Cameras is a non-profit in Edmonton, Alberta that encourages youth from all walks of life to share their voice through photography. And Heather and I met recently to talk about Kids4 Cameras, and I was very interested on how both the community can be involved in hosting an opportunity for kids to be engaged and to be able to connect and to find their voice and using digital media. And I wanted to share this experience with my audience, and we'll talk to Heather Scott about Kids4 Cameras. Welcome, Heather. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you very much for having me today.
Heather, give us a bit of a background about your role with Kids4 Cameras and how Kids4 Cameras got started.
My role is that about a year and a half ago, I joined the board and I deal with operations and I often chair the meetings and move us along. Kids4 Cameras it was incorporated in December of 2014, but prior to that, there was a professional photographer, Jacob Boss, who had an idea about doing outreach to youth and to bridge the gap of connections through photography.
Okay, so outreach using photography, that gives some kids the opportunity to use some gadgets and to be able to give them some skills.
Yes, and they gravitate towards any sort of camera that we bring on board, and they also get a chance to find their voice.
Okay. So who's involved in Kids4 Cameras? It's a nonprofit, it's a board of directors. So what other types of people are involved with this group?
Well, we have various groups that work with youth. So they are connected to us as stakeholders in places where our program runs. And we also have volunteer photographers, people who love photography and have a desire to share that skill with those that want to take our programs.
Okay, so can you give us an example? What would a youth want to do with Kids4 Cameras? How could we get the benefit out of that?
Well, the benefit of Kids4 Cameras is that it allows youth to be learning about something that genuinely interests them, because the internet is part of our daily life and photographs are part of that. It also allows them to show us their take on their world. And often youth are looking to connect, and this is often something that really appeals to them.
Okay. So we've got volunteers. It's not-for-profits. You've got volunteer photographers, and youth come and attend a program sponsored by a local community stakeholder. Mm-hmm. And what does the program look like? If I was starting today with the Kids4 Cameras program, and if I was attending, what does this mean? What does it offer me?
You as a participant?
Yes.
As a youth participant, you get a chance to have a camera. We provide cameras to the kids. You get a chance to learn the basics about photography. You get a chance to hear what the volunteer photographer has to share, because they're often professionals who have a fair degree of experience and a desire to share it. And once you start producing work of your own, you get a chance to submit some of your favorite photos to either appear in our yearly calendar or to be featured on our website, or also have the opportunity to be selected for one of our art shows.
Okay. So can you give us a story about how that might all pull together?
Well, we have a group of very dedicated volunteer photographers who get a lot out of the program, so that's a very positive aspect of it. And we also have a number of youth who have created such a skill. They've decided to purchase some of their own equipment. They've decided to print and share their work, and that's occurred at a number of different art walks around the city in the past couple of years.
Okay, so we're seeing some art being produced by these kids and lots of different places. And it must be really validating for them to be able to see their art that other people are enjoying.
It is a very positive experience from what I've seen. They are very excited. They light right up, and they're excited to share.
So this is a way to be able to engage with kids who may not have an opportunity to learn about photography. So you're connecting those volunteer photographer with kids who are interested in expressing themselves through the media. And you've got some expert volunteers to help them to do that. So you also provide the cameras for the kids as part of the program.
Yes, we do.
So tell me how that works.
Well, I'll tell you about my experience. I work for a real estate company here in Edmonton, and I decided to run a camera drive at my office. There are about 65 to 70 people in my office, downtown Edmonton, and I figured that if anyone was going to get a camera for Christmas, it was going to be a good time to run a drive in the following January. So I sent out a quick email to people explaining what it was for, making a request for digital cameras, hopefully with the charger included, but we do have a way of tracking those down if we need to. And within about 4 weeks, I had 15 cameras plus a video camera. So that goes a long way toward ensuring that all the programs that we would like to run can run because we have the equipment needed.
Okay. So as a healthcare provider and somebody who's interested in the community, if you've got some digital cameras available, we can donate them for Kids4 Cameras, and they'll make them available to youth who are interested in learning about photography.
That's right. We have, at the moment, we have more programs interested in having the program than we have equipment. So Camera Drive is our next big initiative coming into the holiday season. We've just actually gone through the process of creating a small handout so that people can understand how simple it really is to do that.
So if people are interested in doing a camera drive in their organization, how would they connect with you to do that?
Well, they can either call me or email me. So my email address is heather@Kids4Cameras. So that's KIDS, the number 4 cameras.com. Or they can call 587-340-8489. And that is our general information line. They can leave information there and I'll get back to them to ensure they get the right documents.
Okay. So Kids4 Cameras provides a way to outreach into the community as a social connector to help kids bridge the gap with their photography. How else can people become involved in connecting with you and Kids4 Cameras?
Well, we actually are looking for a couple of volunteers for a bit of a higher level volunteer opportunity right now. So if people are interested in, regular, monthly involvement, that's great. Other people are interested in either donating cameras, doing camera drives, or volunteering, at some of the trade shows or booths that we have at some of our events. So if they are interested in getting involved, we do have a volunteer mixer, usually 2 or 3 times a year. So if they'd like to be in touch with me at that email address, I'd be happy to either interview them as a prospective volunteer or connect them with the next mixer.
Okay. So one of the objectives for Kids4 Cameras is to be able to help and make connections for or with kids with other services that they might have a need for as well. So that might be a whole variety of social services. What types of other services would you connect kids with?
One of the things that we do when we go to some of the local shelters to run the program is not only do we run the photography component of the program, but as is the case, once you're working on one thing, conversation can happen about another. And our volunteer photographers are listening for things that they might need. Sometimes that has to do with getting more information about getting back into school, whether they need particular access to housing and or primary health care. And some kids, this is not for all of the demographic, but if some kids have left home in a hurry, oftentimes they need ID. And so we do have a fast track out program where we will connect with youth to ensure that they get their ID in place so they have access to all those other services.
Okay. So it's a way to be able to connect with kids about something that they're excited about, learning about photography, having a conversation and see what other supports that they might also need, or other ways that they can grow, express themselves through photography, and to be able to share information with their community.
Absolutely. Connecting to the most relevant resources is one of the most amazing byproducts of this type of outreach. So you're talking about aperture and lighting, and all of a sudden you're finding out that what they really need is to find a way to get back to school.
Okay. So lots of valuable connections that are happening. As a primary healthcare provider, if this is something that you are interested in becoming engaged with to be able to support a way to connect with your community, there are a couple of ways that you can do that. We've talked about the camera drive that you can host in your office. We need digital cameras to be able to offer them to kids to get them to come in and connect. Mm-hmm. We also have the opportunity for volunteer positions to assist not-for-profit organization and all the many ways that we need administrative and support and volunteers to be able to do that. But also for your healthcare practices that perhaps you've got some space. That you can host or sponsor a pilot program with Kids4 Cameras. If you've got some space that you can make available on a weekend or perhaps an evening when kids aren't otherwise in school, and that you can connect with your community and build some bridges with the organizations in the community, the kids in the community. What might that look like, Heather, about what could that pilot program look like?
Well, thank you for asking, because this is one of the primary roles that I have as a board member, and that is to connect with organizations that are interested in hosting a program. So the way that it would work is a representative from that group would contact me, and we would just begin discussions about the location, the numbers that they think they might actually have, ensuring that we have equipment available, ensuring that there's time and space that works not only for the participants but the volunteer photographer as well as the people considering hosting the space. And then basically I generally talk to people about a 4 to 6 week pilot program to gauge the response within that particular community. And those people who are in that location can do a lot towards, first of all, gauging the response as well as really generating a lot of interest. The school that we are currently in Edmonton, it's a very sports-oriented school, so there are lots of sports programs, and the principal and teacher sponsor were very interested in bringing something that would appeal to students who aren't necessarily involved in sport. So they're wanting to, ensure that everyone has an opportunity to participate in something that is interesting to them.
Okay. So as far as a location, what type of class size are we looking at? How many spaces do we need to have people coming in and attending a location?
Well, in terms of, any traditional boardroom space that would host, between 10 and 15 would work at the beginning. And then we'd work with somebody who was actually the sponsor of the program within their organization to ensure that small groups, the group would probably be between 7 and 10 at the most, based on the size. And we would work with them to arrange not a field trip per se, but a place to go to take pictures of things that are more interesting than chairs. So we do need to have a certain amount of reliable youth turnout in order for the volunteer photographer to feel that they are really contributing. And so that's one of the other things that the sponsor can do is generate that interest and communicate and enroll, be enrolling with the youth that they're considering bringing programming in for.
Okay. So we need some location space where it's warm and inviting, a place that they can attend on a regular basis for a 6-week period to start off with, and see how that goes. And then, of course, you need a staff person that's going to be available during that programming time. Mm-hmm. And another way, if you don't have a location space in your healthcare practice, is to be able to refer kids who have an interest in healthcare or an interest in Let me say this again. You can refer kids who have an interest in photography into this community outreach to be able to encourage their artistic ability and to be able to mentor and deal in a positive way within their environment.
Absolutely.
Okay. And we can find all this information on Kids4Cameras.com website. And you also have other social media presence.
Mm-hmm. We have a Facebook page that is Kids4 Cameras. And we also, that's probably the best place for people to look to see what's actually going on with our organization. Volunteer mixers, upcoming events, things that we're involved in. So,
okay. Kids4 Cameras strikes me as a great way to be able to encourage kids and youth to encourage their empowerment, trust, and leadership. It's a not-for-profit in Edmonton, and we've been talking with Heather Scott today, one of the board members of Kids4Cameras.com. So you can become involved by hosting a camera drive in your organization, attending volunteer support and volunteering your time with Kids4 Cameras, or perhaps hosting a location spot for a Kids4 Cameras program in your healthcare practice. Thank you, Heather. This has been very interesting. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much for having me.